The soft, persistent beep of the Deep Space Communications Network echoed through the command center of Artemis Station. Lieutenant Kai Mercer's eyes snapped open from his half-doze at the communications console. The year 2387 had been relatively quiet for the United States Rescue Fleet, but that was about to change. "Something's coming through the noise, sir," Kai announced, adjusting the frequency modulators. His fingers danced across the holographic interface, isolating a faint signal buried beneath layers of cosmic radiation and stellar interference. Through the static came 3 distinct pulses, followed by 3 longer tones, then 3 quick pulses again. The universal distress call that had remained unchanged for centuries. SOS. "Source?" Admiral Elena Wu's voice cut through the tension as she approached from the command platform, her uniform crisp despite the late station hour. "Outpost Hades, Caligo 9, Kai replied, enhancing the signal. "It's weak, Admiral, breaking up badly." The message fragmented through the speakers. "Colony under siege. Deathworlders overwhelmed. Requesting Earth's aid." Admiral Wu's expression hardened. Caligo 9 was classified as a death world, a planet where few species could survive naturally. It was a mining outpost primarily, rich in tin and uranium deposits that powered half the colonies in the Outer Rim. More importantly, it was home to nearly 300 civilian workers and their families. "Lieutenant, establish a direct channel. I want to know what we're dealing with." Kai's hands flew across the console, but the return signal remained weak. "No response, Admiral. The transmission appears to be automated." Admiral Wu didn't hesitate. "Alert the IFV Valkyrie. Full combat deployment. We launch in 30 minutes." The communications officer on duty, a young ensign fresh from the academy, cleared his throat nervously. "Admiral, Interplanetary Council protocols suggest we should consult. The Council takes hours to convene and days to decide." Wu cut him off. "By then, everyone on that outpost could be dead. Earth never answers an SOS lightly. Ensign, remember that." Kai transmitted the orders to the docking bay, where the Valkyrie, an interstellar force vessel equipped with both rescue and combat capabilities, stood ready. As a tactical translator officer, he would be joining the mission, serving as the communications bridge between cultures if necessary. "Lieutenant Mercer," Admiral Wu addressed him directly, "gather everything we have on Caligo 9. Topography, atmosphere, native life. I want to know what our people are facing down there." Within 20 minutes, Kai had compiled the sparse information available. The briefing aboard the Valkyrie was tense and abbreviated. "Caligo 9 presents multiple environmental challenges," he explained to the assembled rescue team. "Volcanic terrain, toxic atmosphere requiring full breathing apparatus, and approximately 3 times Earth's gravity. The mining colony is built into a caldera for protection from the elements." "And the natives?" Major Marcos Lee, the ground team commander, asked. "Limited information," Kai admitted. "Humanoid but evolved for high-gravity environments. Exoskeletal reinforcement of their limbs. Enhanced respiratory systems. They've kept mostly to themselves since the mining treaty was signed 50 years ago." Admiral Wu, who had chosen to lead the mission personally, stepped forward. "Our primary objective is rescuing Earth personnel. Secondary objectives include securing critical mining infrastructure if possible. Rules of engagement: defensive posture only unless directly threatened." As the Valkyrie prepared to break from Artemis Station's docking clamps, an incoming transmission flashed on the command screen. The stern face of Ambassador Leandri from the Upper Council appeared. "Admiral Wu, you are acting without authorization." The ambassador's voice was cold, with diplomatic restraint. "The Council has not approved military intervention on Caligo 9. "This isn't military intervention, Ambassador," Wu replied evenly. "It's a rescue operation in response to a distress call. Earth treaty rights are clear on this matter. The cost of deploying the Valkyrie to a death world exceeds the projected value of the mining operation. Leandri continued. The Council recommends financial prudence in... We don't measure human lives against quarterly profits. Ambassador, Wu interrupted, her voice steel. Valkyrie out. The communication cut off as the massive ship disengaged from the station, engines powering up to full capacity. The journey to Caligo 9 would take 17 hours at maximum burn, 17 hours during which the situation on the ground could deteriorate completely. During transit, Kai monitored all frequencies, hoping for additional information from the surface. 12 hours into their journey, a garbled transmission broke through. This is Outpost Hades. Red alert. Deathworlders have mining equipment, attacking civilians, biological weapons. Kai enhanced the signal, isolating a female voice speaking accented standard English. This is Lieutenant Kai Mercer of the IFV Valkyrie, he responded. We are inbound to your location. Please identify yourself. Static crackled before the voice returned. Sarah Takan, lead engineer. I'm not human. I'm Caligan. The insurgents don't represent all of us. They're using some kind of biological projectile weapons. Our shields won't much longer. Kai's training kicked in immediately. A native informant could prove invaluable. Engineer Takan, can you tell us more about these weapons and the current situation in the outpost? They're organic, grown, not manufactured. Secretions hardened into projectiles that, through standard armor, they've taken the North Quadrant, holding approximately 40 hostages. The rest of us are barricaded in the central hub. Admiral Wu had joined Kai at the communication station. Ask about their leader. We need to know who we're dealing with. The insurgents are led by Chieftain Valkor, Sarah continued, anticipating the question. He believes the mining operations are killing the planet, called for extermination of all off-worlders 3 days ago. The connection deteriorated further, ending with what sounded like explosions in the background. Despite repeated attempts, Kai couldn't re-establish contact. 5 hours to arrival, Admiral Wu announced grimly. Prepare all combat and rescue systems. This just became a hostage situation. The Valkyrie emerged from light speed on the dark side of Caligo 9, using the planet's shadow to mask their approach. The world below was a churning nightmare of active volcanoes and vast lava fields, with thin strips of habitable land between them. Somewhere in that hellscape, hundreds of civilians were fighting for their lives. Scanning for outpost signatures, the sensor officer reported, picking up multiple heat sources around the main facility. Movement patterns suggest armed forces. Kai zoomed in the visual feed, enhancing the image. What he saw sent a chill down his spine. Hundreds of native Caligans surrounded the mining outpost, carrying what appeared to be organic rifles that pulsed with bioluminescent energy. Admiral, we have a problem, he said. The insurgent force is significantly larger than expected. I count at least 300 armed individuals surrounding the facility. Wu studied the tactical display. Deploy reconnaissance drones. I want eyes inside that outpost before we commit. The drones, small enough to slip through ventilation systems, transmitted their findings within minutes. The central hub of Outpost Hades remained under human control, but barely. Approximately 70 personnel had barricaded themselves using mining equipment and makeshift barriers. Among them, Kai spotted a taller figure with the distinctive exoskeletal ridges of a Caligan, presumably Engineer Takan. Life signs are stable but declining, the medical officer reported. Environmental controls are failing. They have perhaps 2 hours of breathable air remaining. Wu made her decision. We can't wait. Valkyrie will enter low orbit and provide cover fire while the drop modules deploy. Major Lee, prepare your team for immediate ground insertion. As the massive ship descended into the atmosphere, alarm klaxons blared throughout the command deck. Incoming fire! The tactical officer shouted. Multiple biological projectiles targeting our hull and engines. The Valkyrie shuddered as the first volley struck. While individually weak, the sheer number of impacts began registering on the shield monitors. Shield integrity at 92% and dropping, the systems officer reported. These projectiles contain some kind of corrosive enzyme that's degrading the energy field. Admiral Wu's expression remained impassive. Continue descent. Charge forward plasma cannons, but hold fire until my command. We're not here to start a war. The Valkyrie's massive form pushed through Caligo 9's thick atmosphere, drawing ever more fire from the surface. By the time they reached optimal deployment altitude, shield integrity had fallen to 65%. Another hit like that and we risk system failures, the chief engineer warned over the comm. Kai studied the tactical display, noticing a pattern in the attacks. Admiral, they're concentrating fire from that ridge formation to the east. That appears to be their command position. Wu nodded. Target acquired. Valkyrie, prepare to execute Lightning Strike protocol. The Lightning Strike was a precision combination of long-range missiles and focused plasma beams, designed to neutralize threats with minimal collateral damage. As the weapon systems came online, Wu addressed the insurgents directly through the ship's external speakers. Her message translated into the native Caligan language by the ship's AI. Attention, forces of Chieftain Valkor. This is Admiral Elena Wu of Earth's Rescue Fleet. We are here in response to a distress call. Stand down immediately and release all hostages, or we will be forced to take defensive action. The response was immediate, a concentrated barrage that dropped shield integrity to 45%. They're not interested in talking, Major Lee observed grimly. So it seems, Wu agreed. Weapons. Execute Lightning Strike on the eastern ridge. Minimal yield. Targeted effect only. The Valkyrie's forward section, illuminated as plasma cannons discharged in perfect synchronization with a volley of precision missiles. The eastern ridge erupted in a controlled inferno that lasted mere seconds, leaving the command position in ruins, but the surrounding terrain untouched. The effect on the insurgent forces was immediate. The coordinated attack faltered as communications were disrupted, creating momentary confusion. Shield integrity stabilizing at 38%, the systems officer reported. Insurgent fire has decreased by approximately 60%. Now's our window, Wu decided. Major Lee, deploy your team. Lieutenant Mercer, you're with them. Find Engineer Takan. She's our best hope for negotiating with any reasonable natives. Kai had expected the order, but still felt his heart rate spike. Combat drops onto Deathworlds weren't part of standard communications officer training, but his additional qualification as a tactical officer made him the logical choice. The drop modules launched from the Valkyrie's belly, 6 armored capsules each, carrying 5 rescue personnel in full combat environment suits. Kai found himself squeezed between Major Lee and a medical specialist, the module's interior barely large enough for their equipped forms. Impact in 30 seconds, the module's AI announced calmly. Brace for high-gravity landing. The descent was controlled chaos. Through the module's viewports, Kai watched as the ground forces of Caligo 9 fired upward, several projectiles glancing off their reinforced hull. The Valkyrie provided covering fire, carefully placed plasma bursts, keeping the majority of insurgents at bay. Impact came with bone-jarring force, even through the module's inertial dampeners. The moment the doors blew open, Caligo 9's punishing gravity hit Kai like a physical blow. His environment suit automatically compensated. Exoskeletal supports locking into place to prevent his muscles and bones from failing under the strain. "Move! Move! Move!" Major Lee shouted, leading the team out into the hellscape. The landscape around them was nightmare-given form. Black obsidian fields, broken by rivers of molten rock. The air thick with volcanic ash that swirled around their helmet visors. Through this alien terrain, they sprinted toward the mining outpost, a half-kilometer dash that felt like running a marathon. Insurgent forces converged on their position, firing the strange biological weapons Engineer Takan had described. Up close, Kai could see they were indeed organic, rifle-like growths that seemed almost alive, pulsing with internal light as they discharged hardened projectiles. "Keep formation," Lee ordered, as the team returned fire with standard energy weapons, set to stun where possible. Outpost entrance, 200 meters. A projectile struck the ground near Kai, splattering a viscous fluid that immediately began eating through the volcanic rock. "Confirm biological corrosive properties," he reported through the team comm. "Avoid direct contact at all costs." They reached the outpost's main entrance, a massive airlock designed to keep the toxic atmosphere out, only to find it sealed and unresponsive. "Lieutenant, get us inside," Lee ordered. Kai connected his suit's interface to the outpost's systems, quickly working through emergency override protocols. Security lockdown is in effect, attempting manual bypass. As he worked, the rest of the team formed a defensive perimeter, exchanging fire with approaching insurgents. The Valkyrie continued providing air support, but with precision that suggested Admiral Wu was being careful not to cause unnecessary casualties. "Got it!" Kai announced as the airlock's massive doors began to separate with a groan of protesting metal. "We're—" His words cut off as a Caligan warrior leapt from a hidden position, tackling him to the ground. Up close, the native was terrifying, nearly 7 feet tall with an exoskeleton that rippled beneath leathery skin. Eyes adapted to see in Caligo 9's permanent twilight. The crushing gravity made fighting back nearly impossible. But Kai's combat training kicked in. He directed his suit to channel additional power to the arm servos, breaking the Caligan's grip just enough to reach the stun baton at his belt. The discharge sent the warrior into convulsions before it collapsed, temporarily paralyzed. "Lieutenant, status?" Lee's voice came through his helmet comm. "Operational," Kai managed, struggling back to his feet. "Let's move." Inside the outpost, emergency lighting bathed everything in a red glow. Signs of battle were everywhere. Barricades constructed from office furniture, impact marks from biological projectiles eating through metal walls, scattered equipment abandoned in haste. They followed the station schematic displayed in their helmet HUDs toward the central hub. Twice, they encountered small groups of insurgents who had breached the outer sections, exchanging brief, intense firefights before pushing forward. When they finally reached the central hub's sealed doors, Kai was reminded of ancient fortress sieges. The defenders had welded additional plating to the entrance and constructed a secondary barricade of mining equipment just beyond it. "This is Major Marcos Lee of the Earth Rescue Fleet," Lee announced through the external speakers of his suit. "We're here in response to your distress call." For several tense seconds, nothing happened. Then a section of the barricade shifted, and a voice came through their comms. "Verify Earth Protocol Sigma 93. Kai recognized the standard authentication request. "Earth stands with her people, across all stars and worlds." He responded with the correct countersign. The barricade moved further, revealing an opening just large enough to admit them, one at a time. Inside, 72 haggard survivors looked up with expressions ranging from disbelief to tearful relief. Many showed signs of injury, burns, lacerations, broken limbs set in makeshift splints. Among them stood Engineer Sarah Takan, instantly recognizable by her Caligan physiology. Despite being of the same species as their attackers, she bore visible injuries from what appeared to be her own people's weapons. "Lieutenant Mercer," she acknowledged, her voice matching the one from the earlier transmission. "Your timing is impeccable. Environmental systems are failing, and we've nearly exhausted our medical supplies." "We have a medical team and extraction capabilities," Kai assured her. "The Valkyrie is providing air support, but we need to move quickly." Major Lee was already organizing the survivors into transport groups. "First priority, children, injured, and essential personnel. Lieutenant, get as much information from Engineer Takan as possible about what we're facing." Kai pulled Sarah aside, while the medical team triaged the wounded. Up close, He could see the distinctive ridged exoskeleton that allowed Caligans to function in the crushing gravity of their world. Unlike the attacking warriors, however, Sarah's features seemed more refined, her movements precise and controlled. "What can you tell me about Chieftain Valkor and his forces?" Kai asked, keeping one eye on the tactical display showing the Valkyries' ongoing battle above them. "Valkor leads the mountain clans," Sarah explained, her English precise despite the alien configuration of her speech organs. "They've always opposed off-world presence, but something changed 3 weeks ago. They discovered ancient biological technologies in the deeper mines, weapons our ancestors used in tribal wars centuries ago." "The organic rifles," Kai nodded. "Biosynth projectors," Sarah corrected. "Living weapons that bond with their users. They draw from the user's own biology to create projectiles infused with corrosive enzymes. Valkor believes your mining operations uncovered a sacred site, and that Earth personnel have desecrated it." Kai relayed this information to Admiral Wu, while the first group of evacuees was prepared for transport. "Can we negotiate?" Wu's voice came back, tight with concentration as she directed the Valkyries' defensive systems. Sarah, hearing the question through Kai's open comm, shook her head. "Valkor has invoked the Blood Oath. In our culture, there can be no peace until either he or all off-worlders are dead." "Admiral," Kai reported, "negotiation appears unlikely at this stage. Recommend complete evacuation of all Earth personnel." "Agreed," Wu responded. "But we've got a problem. Shield integrity is down to 22%. One more concentrated attack and we lose maneuverability. We need to neutralize their remaining weapons platforms before extraction can proceed." Major Lee joined the conversation. "We've identified 72 survivors here. That's not the full complement of the outpost. Approximately 30 personnel are unaccounted for, likely the hostages Engineer Takan mentioned." A terrible choice loomed before them: attempt to rescue the remaining hostages, potentially losing the Valkyrie and everyone aboard, or evacuate those they could save now and abandon the others. Kai studied Sarah's expression, seeing the conflict there. "You know where they're holding the other humans, don't you?" After a moment's hesitation, she nodded. "The sacred caverns beneath the North Quadrant. It's where they discovered the biosynth technology. Valkor believes sacrificing the off-worlders there will appease our ancestors." "Sacrificing?" Kai's blood ran cold. "When?" "The ritual requires the third rising of the blood moon. That's approximately 6 hours from now." Kai made a decision. "Admiral, we need more time. Request permission to lead a secondary team to locate and extract the hostages while the primary evacuation proceeds." There was a pause before Wu's response. "That's a suicide mission, Lieutenant." "Not necessarily," Sarah interjected. "I know the cavern systems. I can guide him. And I may be able to speak with Valkor. Our clans have ancient peace bonds that even the Blood Oath cannot entirely sever." Another pause, longer this time. Then, "Permission granted, Lieutenant. But you have 4 hours, not 6. After that, the Valkyrie must withdraw to safe orbit regardless of outcome." Major Lee assigned 3 additional personnel to Kai's team, a combat medic and 2 security specialists. The rest would continue with the primary evacuation, using the drop modules to transport survivors back to the Valkyrie in groups. As they prepared to move out, Sarah provided them with environmental data that allowed their suits to better compensate for Caligo 9's punishing conditions. "The caverns are partially shielded from the surface atmosphere," she explained. "But they have their own dangers. Pockets of gas that can corrode your equipment and natural formations that can cut through even reinforced materials." Their path took them through maintenance tunnels that connected the central hub to the northern quadrant. Twice, they were forced to detour around collapsed sections where fighting had damaged structural supports. All the while, they could hear the ongoing battle outside as the Valkyrie continued to hold off insurgent forces. Shield integrity at 18%, came the update from Admiral Wu. We've neutralized their eastern positions, but they're regrouping to the north, directly above your position, Lieutenant. Understood, Kai acknowledged. We're approaching the cavern entrance now. The transition from the manufactured environment of the outpost to the natural caverns was abrupt. One moment they were in sterile corridors with emergency lighting. The next, they stood at the entrance to a vast underground network, illuminated by bioluminescent fungi that cast everything in an eerie blue glow. The sacred places, Sarah whispered with evident reverence despite the circumstances. Our ancestors took shelter here during the Great Burning, when the volcano gods were angry. Kai checked his scanner. I'm detecting multiple life signs approximately 300 meters deeper. Human biosignatures among them. They proceeded cautiously. Sarah, guiding them through winding passages, where the walls themselves seemed alive with pulsating organic matter. The further they went, the more Kai understood why the Caligans might view this place as sacred. It was like entering the living heart of the planet itself. Movement ahead, one of the security specialists warned, weapon raised. A group of Caligan warriors emerged from a side passage, biosynth weapons trained on them instantly. At their center stood a massive figure adorned with what appeared to be ceremonial armor, crafted from volcanic glass and biological components. Chieftain Valkor, Sarah identified him, stepping forward slightly. The chieftain's voice was deep and resonant, speaking first in his native language before switching to heavily accented English. Sarah Takan, you betray your people by bringing these defilers deeper into the sacred places. They come to retrieve their own, Sarah replied evenly. No harm will come to the caverns. Harm has already come, Valkor roared, gesturing with a massive arm that ended in a partially integrated biosynth weapon. Their digging machines cut into the ancient growth chambers. They spill poison into the breeding pools. They kill Caligo slowly, generation by generation. Kai stepped forward, his translator training taking over. Chieftain Valkor, I am Lieutenant Kai Mercer of Earth. We were unaware of the sacred nature of these caverns. If mining operations have damaged sites of importance to your people, we can negotiate reparations and new boundaries. Negotiate? Valkor laughed, a harsh sound like grinding stone. When your kind arrived, you spoke of partnership. Yet the poison from your machines seeps deeper each season. The Ancient Ones whisper of death coming to all Caligo. There is no negotiation with extinction. A terrible understanding dawned on Kai. This wasn't simply about sacred sites. The mining operations were having environmental impacts the Earth corporations had either missed or deliberately concealed. The Caligans were fighting for survival, not just cultural preservation. Show me the evidence of this poison, Kai requested. If what you say is true, Earth authorities will hold the mining consortium accountable. Valkor seemed surprised by the request. After a moment's consideration, he gestured to his warriors. Show the Earthman the dying pools. One of the warriors led them to a side chamber, where bioluminescent pools glowed with sickly yellow light, rather than the healthy blue of the main caverns. Within them, Kai could see malformed organic structures that pulsed weakly. These are breeding pools for the cavern ecosystem, Sarah explained quietly. They should be vibrant with new growth. Instead, they're dying. Kai took readings with his suit's sensors, the results confirming high levels of industrial chemicals consistent with uranium processing. This is a violation of Earth's environmental treaties, he said, storing the data. But holding hostages and attacking civilians isn't the answer. Chieftain, it only ensures that more force will be sent. We tried your ways, Valkor growled. For 10 cycles, we sent messages, filed complaints with your councils. They sent inspectors who saw nothing, changed nothing. Now we speak in the only language your kind truly understands, the language of blood and fire. A distant explosion rocked the cavern, dust and small rocks raining down from above. The battle on the surface was intensifying. "Your ship cannot withstand our weapons much longer," Valkor observed with grim satisfaction. "Soon it will fall, and all off-worlders will be cleansed from Caligo." Kai received an urgent transmission from the Valkyrie. "Lieutenant, shield integrity critical at 9%. Major Lee has completed primary evacuation, but we must withdraw to orbit in 15 minutes, with or without your team." Time was running out. Kai made a decision based on everything he'd learned about Caligan culture from Sarah and his own observations. "Chieftain Valkor, I challenge you to judgment by truth," he announced, using a formal phrase Sarah had mentioned during their preparations. Both Valkor and Sarah looked stunned. "You invoke ancient law?" the chieftain demanded. "I do," Kai confirmed, hoping his understanding was correct. "If I can prove the mining consortium has violated their agreements with your people, you will release the hostages. If I cannot, I will remain as sacrifice in their place." A murmur ran through the Caligan warriors. Valkor studied Kai with new intensity, as if seeing him properly for the first time. "You would offer your life for theirs, knowing our rituals?" "Earth never answers an SOS lightly," Kai replied, echoing Admiral Wu's words. "We stand with our people, and we stand for what is right. The mining operations have harmed your world. I have the evidence. But killing innocents won't restore your sacred places." Valkor was silent for a long moment, the biosynth weapon on his arm pulsing with inner light, as if reflecting his emotional state. Finally, he spoke. "Show your evidence. Let truth judge between us." Kai connected his suit systems to a small, holographic projector, displaying the chemical analysis of the breeding pools alongside the environmental standards agreed upon in the original mining treaty. The discrepancies were immediately apparent. "The poison levels exceed the treaty limits by 17 times, he explained. "Under Earth law, this is criminal negligence. The consortium executives would face imprisonment, and all operations would be halted pending full environmental restoration." Sarah translated technical terms when necessary, her own expression growing increasingly outraged as she understood the full scope of the damage. Valkor examined the evidence, then addressed his warriors in their native language. A heated discussion followed, with Sarah occasionally interjecting. Finally, the chieftain turned back to Kai. "If what you claim is true, that Earth will punish the poison spreaders and heal the sacred places, then we have no quarrel with your rescue mission." His massive form seemed to straighten with dignity. "But know this, Earthman. If your promises prove false, no depth of space will be sufficient to hide from our vengeance." "I understand," Kai acknowledged. "Now, please, the hostages." At Valkor's command, several warriors departed, returning minutes later with 28 haggard, frightened humans. Many showed signs of rough treatment, but all were alive. "Lieutenant Mercer to Valkyrie," Kai transmitted immediately. "We have the hostages, requesting immediate extraction at our position." "Negative, Lieutenant," came Admiral Wu's tense reply. "We cannot approach your location. Shield integrity at 6%. You must reach extraction point Echo 3 within 12 minutes. Echo 3 was at least a kilometer away, through winding caverns, and then across open ground. Ground still controlled by insurgent forces, who might not yet know of Valkor's decision. "We'll never make it in time carrying the injured," the medic said quietly. Valkor, overhearing, made another decision. "I will provide escort. Not all warriors follow me, but enough to clear your path." It was an unexpected offer, one that could potentially heal the breach between their peoples. "Thank you, Chieftain." What followed was a desperate race against time. The combined group, Earth Rescue Team, freed hostages, and Valkor's warriors moved through the caverns at the fastest pace the injured could manage. When they emerged onto the surface, the hellscape of Caligo 9 was made worse by the ongoing battle. The Valkyrie hung in the sky above them, energy shields visibly flickering as they absorbed continuous fire from insurgent positions. True to his word, Valkor's warriors engaged the opposing forces, biosynth weapons flaring as they cleared a path toward extraction point, Echo 3. Kai and his team helped the hostages across the volcanic terrain, environment suits supplementing their strength against the crushing gravity. Valkyrie, visual on Echo 3, Kai reported as they approached the designated landing zone. Requesting immediate extraction. Inbound, Lieutenant, hold position. The final drop module descended from the embattled ship, touching down in a swirl of volcanic ash. They loaded the hostages as quickly as possible, but it was immediately clear that the module couldn't accommodate everyone in a single trip. We'll need to make 2 runs, the module pilot announced. And I don't know if the Valkyrie can hold position that long. Kai made the call. Take the hostages. We'll hold here with Chieftain Valkor's forces until you can return. Lieutenant, the pilot began to protest. That's an order. Go! As the module lifted off, Kai, Sarah, and the remaining rescue team formed a defensive perimeter alongside Valkor's warriors. The chieftain himself stood at Kai's side, his massive biosynth weapon firing steadily at insurgents who refused to acknowledge his commands to stand down. Your ship is failing, Valkor observed, as the Valkyrie's shields flickered more erratically. Admiral Wu won't abandon us, Kai assured him. Though privately, he wondered if the ship would have any choice. Shield failure in atmosphere could be catastrophic. Above them, the Valkyrie suddenly executed a desperate maneuver, rolling to present its least damaged shield quadrant toward the heaviest fire. As it did so, ports opened along its ventral surface, releasing dozens of small, dart-like objects that scattered across the battlefield. What are those? Valkor demanded, raising his weapon instinctively. Bioabsorption drones, Kai realized aloud. They're programmed to neutralize organic compounds, like the enzymes in your weapons. The effect was almost immediate. As the drones dispersed, the corrosive projectiles being fired at the Valkyrie began losing potency. The ship's shields stabilized at 4%, perilously low, but no longer dropping. Admiral Wu to ground team. Shield crisis temporarily averted. Extraction module returning to your position. ETA 3 minutes. Those 3 minutes stretched into eternity as they defended their position. 2 of Valkor's warriors fell to insurgent fire, and one of the security specialists took a glancing hit that partially melted his suit's arm plating. When the module finally returned, touching down in a cloud of dust and ash, Kai turned to Valkor. Come with us. Speak directly to Earth authorities about what's happened here. The chieftain shook his massive head. My place is with my people. There is much to rebuild here. He extended his non-weaponized hand in a surprisingly human gesture. But I will speak with your Admiral Wu before you leave our world. There must be understanding between us if there is to be peace. As they boarded the module, Sarah hesitated at the entrance. I should stay, she said to Kai. My people will need someone who can translate their grievances into terms your councils will understand. Are you certain? Kai asked. The situation here remains volatile. Sarah nodded firmly. This is my world, Lieutenant. Its fate is my fate. The return to the Valkyrie was tense but uneventful. The bioabsorption drones had effectively neutralized the insurgents' most dangerous weapons, creating a temporary stalemate. Admiral Wu was waiting when they arrived, her uniform showing signs of the battle they'd endured. Lieutenant Mercer, she acknowledged with a tight smile. Your team performed admirably under extreme conditions. Thank you, Admiral. But we have unfinished business. Kai explained what they'd discovered about the mining consortium's environmental violations and Valkor's conditional ceasefire. Wu's expression darkened as she reviewed the evidence. This will mean a major diplomatic incident with the consortium. The Interplanetary Council won't be pleased. With respect, Admiral, the Council's displeasure seems a small price compared to the lives at stake, both human and Callaghan. Wu studied him for a moment, then nodded decisively. Establish a channel to Chieftain Valkor. Let's formalize this arrangement before we break orbit. The subsequent communication was brief, but momentous. Admiral Wu, representing Earth Authority, acknowledged the environmental violations and pledged a full investigation with appropriate penalties. In return, Valkor agreed to a cessation of hostilities and the establishment of new environmental monitoring protocols that would include Caligan observers. This agreement is preliminary, Wu cautioned. The full council will need to ratify it. We will be watching, Valkor replied simply. Engineer Takan will serve as our voice. If Earth honors its word, perhaps there can be true partnership between our peoples. As the Valkyrie broke orbit, its damaged shields finally stabilizing in the vacuum of space, Kai found himself on the observation deck, watching as Caligo 9 receded into the distance. The planet's surface glowed with rivers of molten rock, beautiful and terrible simultaneously. Admiral Wu joined him there, her reflection appearing in the transparent aluminum viewport. You took an enormous risk, Lieutenant, offering yourself as a sacrifice? It seemed the logical approach based on what I understood of their culture, Kai replied. And I believed you wouldn't leave without us, regardless of shield status. Wu's lips quirked in a small smile. Earth never answers an SOS lightly, Lieutenant. Remember that. I believe I've learned that lesson thoroughly, Admiral. Together, they watched as the first hints of a blood-red sunrise began to illuminate Caligo 9's horizon. Not an ending, but perhaps the beginning of a fragile new understanding between worlds. Behind them, the rescued colonists were receiving medical treatment, their ordeal over but not forgotten. Ahead lay the diplomatic challenges of holding the mining consortium accountable and rebuilding trust with the Caligans. But for this moment, watching the deadly beauty of a Deathworld dawn, Kai allowed himself to feel the simple satisfaction of a mission completed against overwhelming odds. Some would question the cost: a badly damaged Valkyrie, injuries among the rescue personnel, and a political firestorm waiting when they returned to Earth. But as Admiral Wu had said from the beginning, Earth never measured human lives against quarterly profits. An SOS call represented the most sacred obligation, the duty to respond when others were in peril, regardless of the cost or challenge. In the red light of Caligo 9's distant sun, that principle seemed more important than ever.